So hello, good people of the internet. This is Tommy Kelly, and this is the Tommy Kelly podcast. And this week we are doing the question and answer thing that I do every month, with questions from Patreons, and also bonusly this month, questions from the 40 Servants group on Facebook. So just before we get into that, we have a number of questions which should get us through the podcast. Just a few updates, really, what I've been up to. Still working away on the journey, which has been going well. I have the artwork and most of the monogram done for next month's one, which is going to be even more exciting. But this month it was all about preparation, getting into good habits and getting the meditation down and getting the journeying together and searching for your guides and all that kind of thing. And I think for the most part, people seem to be getting a lot out of it. Obviously, as this goes on, there's going to be less and less people doing it, because that is the nature of these things. Everything starts off well, and particularly when you do something on January the 1st, everyone has high hopes for what they will achieve, and then, life gets back in way and they realise, oh, well, I can't do this, or whatever, or they don't want to do it anymore. But the way it's set up is you can do it whenever you want. It's like there's that whole thing in the Course in Miracles is that this is a required course. The only thing that's not mandatory is the amount of time that it takes for you to do it. Now, while this is not a mandatory course, the journey is far from mandatory. It's just if you choose to do it, you can take as long as you want. So even if you want to join up next month, next July or whatever, you can start from the beginning, and you'll still get all the benefits. You'll still get all of the hardships out of doing any sort of shadow work, because as you know, shadow work's not easy, but you do have the support of the group at that point. So just even if you didn't get a chance to start on January 1st, you can check it out in the Patreon, which is, if you go to tommykelly.com, which is TOMMIE, that'll bring you straight to the Patreon, or you can check out adventuresinwoo.com, and that'll link to it as well. And that basically, the journey is open to people who are my patrons on Patreon as a bonus, just for, for supporting my podcasts and my YouTube and my blog and all of that stuff that I do. So if that's something you might be interested in, then you can go check that out at tommykelly.com. In the meantime, however, let's get into this question and answer section. So we are going to start with Jeremy Madulid, which I assume I'm not pronouncing correctly, because it is my want of an evening not to pronounce anyone's name correctly. My apologies in advance for all pronunciations. Jeremy says, and it's more of a statement than a question, but here we go. You should tell everyone that, for the record, the carnal's energy is for everybody, regardless if they're straight, gay, or bi. And I have said this a number of times, and it is very true. The reason why the carnal looks like she does, in that she's a naked, attractive woman, is because I'm a heterosexual cis male, and that's what I find attractive. So that is the embodiment of sexual energy for me. Now, I am very aware that that's not everyone's cup of tea, and you have many different outlooks in life and sexualities and genders or non-genders or whatever it is that is the thing that we're all working out at the minute. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that the carnal, as I have depicted her, is what you should think sexuality is. And you are very free to just use the sigil, for instance. You could do that, or come up with your own picture of it, of what the carnal, what sexuality means to you. The sigils are probably more important than the image depictions of the servants, and that's just one image of how I see things. And I know it's harder with some, like the mother one, we can all kind of go, well, that's kind of what a mother looks like, a pregnant woman. The father looks like a man who's an older man, so you can get away with father, that sort of thing. But when it comes to sexuality, everyone has a kind of a different outlook at it and all that. And I understand that if you're, say, homosexual and don't find women attractive, then you're not going to literally find the carnal attractive. Now, that said, you can still use that image as an embodiment of sexuality and of, like, in the Venus sense, or in, Aphrodite and all of these kind of things. But as chaos magicians, you're free to do whatever you want and change and augment all of these things to suit you and to get the results you need. Now, the problem comes in when people start demanding that other people see things that the way they see them. So, let's say with the carnal, people can be annoyed that someone chooses not to use the image as I have drawn it, or people can be annoyed that they feel it's too heterosexual the image I have chosen, or whatever. People in general can get annoyed about all these things, and while I understand that, that's perfectly fine, perfectly normal, and all that thing. I have found that it leads to people arguing and things getting out of control, and people bringing their own stuff to the table rather than necessarily bringing anything to the topic or whatever. So, not to get too heavy in that because it's not a huge thing, but it does crop up every now and again where people go, I don't, I'm obviously not into women, or don't find this attractive, or whatever. Just use the sigil or use your own interpretation of the carnal. The carnal for me, I don't really use it for attracting mates or for, or any of that kind of stuff. I the carnal for me is all about me feeling good about myself and me feeling happy in my own skin and me feeling sexy, if you want, or me feeling good about myself physically. So I don't really use it in the kind of as an attractor of, I'm a very happily married man, so I'm not looking for, like encounters or, new love or new sexual attraction or all that. So in the sense of me using it, kind of a naked woman doesn't really represent that too well, because I don't want to feel like a beautiful woman. I want to feel masculine man, or whatever it is I want to feel like. I want to feel good about myself as a man. So I'm totally okay with the carnal being an embodiment of that kind of energy and looking like that, even when it's directed at myself trying to be masculine. But again, that's me. That's how I work. That's my view on it. Good chaos magicians, do as thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. But it's, augment this, changes, get it to work for you. Just don't, as all these things, don't demand that other people also do that. Or, that thing of feeling you need to give out or be heard. Oh, well, I think it's ridiculous that the carnal is a woman or whatever. Like, right, fine, then, good or not good or whatever. That's your thing, and everyone has a different thing. So rather than complaining or being annoyed, change it. Do something else. Find something else. Easily done. We're all different. We all have different outlooks, all have different things. And again, that thing was, I didn't design this deck with anyone else in mind. I designed it with me in mind because I didn't think anyone would care. Handful of people maybe for a week, as I've said a million times, I thought would have an interest, and no one would care. So it was designed for me. So it comes from the images in particular come from my outlook and things. But the sigils will work, and the idea will work for everyone, given whatever way you want to approach it. So that's that. So I hope that states for the record, Jeremy, that the carnal is for everyone. Like all of them is for everyone. Same thing. So Beth Wells asks, can you integrate the servants with deities, angels, tarot cards, etc. in a ritual, or should they be worked with in isolation? And again, my answer is, as chaos magicians, you can do whatever you want that works. Well, you can do whatever you want that doesn't work either, but you can do what you want. Do with the emphasis being on does it work, and if it works, great, do more of it. If it doesn't, do less of it, or augment it to change it to get what it works. If you want to use the servants with tarot cards or with runes or with angels or with whatever, go for it. The thing is, though, at the end of the day, they're not designed for that. With that in mind, like they don't fit into, like someone was trying to say, how would you put this into like the tree of life, or make it more Kabbalistic or whatever? And the answer is you can't. Well, you can if you want to, but they're not designed that way. They're not. That's not how they were meant to function. Doesn't mean they can't function like that. It's like, I don't know, think of something that I don't even think I can think of it. That's a terrible idea. Like you have a shoe, say a waterproof shoe, you can drink tea from it. It's not designed that way, but you can do it. I don't know why anyone would want to do that, but I couldn't think of a better example in the moment. Now I love just visions of everyone drinking out of shoes. But so I mean, you can do whatever you want. Like for me, like I'm also like I was going to say, because I use Ganesha. I have a Ganesha statue on my servant's altar and Saint Cyprian. And I mean, Saint Cyprian is the saint, like, but he's not. It's the idea of the saint, without all the baggage that goes with it. And the road opener is, of course, Ganesha. So I mean, there is stuff integrated. You have Marie Laveau is the witch. You have Papa Legba as the gatekeeper. So I mean, there is some kind of element in there. So I'd say, yeah, go for it. Do whatever you want. Don't get hung up on how things were designed. When I say that, I just mean that there's no system in place for this. But make your own. Have your own thing. If it works, let success be thy proof, and go from that kind of thing. I'm not opposed to any of these things, but it's just, again, what happens though is that people go, well, I've worked with the angels and I've worked with servants, and the servants and the angels have told me that they should be used together. And it's when you get to that point, I go, no, that's your outlook and that's your understanding of it. And, stick to that. Don't start demanding, which is the main thing that I get from people. And it's not a terrible thing anyway. Like, I mean, it's not that it's that big of a problem, but people will can see the difference between their outlook on magic in general, or the 47s in particular, and how they use them, without it feeling or without demanding that that's how they should be used in general. So yeah, use them with all these things, and let success be their proof and their guide, and yeah, then offer it as a suggestion rather than the rule to other people. That would be my thing. Now, Beth also says, adding to that, what inspired you to create the 47s in the first place, and what challenges did you meet along the way? Well, I designed them, or I did them in the first place because I was reading lots about magic and doing lots of magic, and I didn't feel a personal connection to a lot of these things. And, like, say, the way people would have a personal connection with certain deities, like the goddess deities from Wicca. There's a quite closeness that some people find, or say with Mercury or Hermes or Saturn, or all these things that people work with. And I didn't find a connection in that way. Or even, people who've worked with Doctor Who and Superman and all that kind of thing. So I wanted to have access to all these kind of equivalent energies or ideas or whatever, but that would suited my kind of mentality and felt more at home with me and more pleasing to me and more useful to me. So instead of, like the Christ energy figure, or, more in the New Age sense of the Christ energy, became part of the master, but it's also the higher, the HGA, the Holy Guardian Angel. It's also the higher self. All of those kind of things amalgamated into one kind of idea that I found more pleasing than the idea of an ascended master, Christ energy, Christ loving energy, or Holy Guardian Angel. The whole Tlemic aspect of that, which is not Tlemic, it's before all that. So it's just that I would be able to use, that I would feel comfortable with and move with, and the master incorporates all of those ideas without any of the other stuff that I don't like around it, or I don't find pleasing, or don't find useful. Or say the idea of Papa Legba and this person who can open doors and get access to things and all that kind of thing, without having to get massive into voodoo or voodoo or whatever. So that it's like kind of my idea of it, my version of it, or my ease into it. And, with the idea of then that everyone can do that. So that was the reason. The reason was because I wanted a tool that I would use, that I would find aesthetically pleasing as well, and that I would find powerful, and that was not connected to all this host of other rules and other ideas and other situations or other dogmas that I didn't want. I wanted more freedom in these things to use them as I want. So that was basically why I did that. Hope that makes sense. It was for me to have a tool that I would find useful, aesthetically pleasing, and with as little dogma and rules as possible. So what challenges did I meet along the way? Challenges. I didn't meet any challenges, like not in the sense of like there was no obstacles. I suppose the only challenges were that when I like the PDF was so terrible, because I didn't think anyone would be interested, so I wrote it in like 2 weeks, and it was like 100-page document in 2 weeks. So that was a challenge, more a challenge to other people than me to have to go through it. And then when I did write the grimoire, still having some mistakes in it, or that's like, so the grimoire was a challenge into trying to get it done and stuff like that, but not a challenge and an obstacle. There's nothing stopping me. The big kind of challenge was trying to explain to people like the nature of the fixer and this whole price to pay, and people getting the wrong idea of it because they were more listening to what other people were saying about it rather than actually read or listen to what I was saying about it. And that constantly answering that question over and over again. And even if you would point people, like people ask me the question and go, here's a video where I explain it, and here's a podcast where I talk about it, and here's a blog where I've written about it, and still at the end of it asking me what's the price that you have to pay for the fixer. It's like, either you didn't read that, which I assumed it didn't then, or you didn't listen to it or whatever, or you just can't get past your own idea, which is fine. That's just fine. Do what is useful to you, but it's just that's challenging. And I, as Robbie will point out, I've issues with repeating myself. That's one of the things I find massively frustrating is having to repeat myself on the same thing over and over again, because I forget that it's like that whole Stan Lee thing where he talks about comics, that every issue of a comic could be someone's first. And it's just because I have answered certain questions about 47 a million times, someone coming to it today or tomorrow obviously isn't aware of that and doesn't know about that, and if they're in other groups talking about it, so I have to learn patience in that kind of thing, which is why I've done the podcasts and the videos and stuff like that, so I can just, rather than having to repeat myself, I can just point at things now, which is much more handy for me. Other challenges, thing I've talked about before, where people have an idea about the 47s or how they use it, and then demand that is what everyone else should be doing, or how I should think of them, or people coming up with this thing that the servants have told me stuff that they didn't tell you, or and I have secret information about the 47s that you don't, and I'm almost getting to the point of, not it hasn't happened, but it's been close in a number of times, that I am the real, the 47 talk to me and they don't talk to you, or this kind of weird stuff that people get into. And that's all fine. It's that thing, if like you can have whatever private gnosis, including myself, that you want. It's the demand that other people, that it's the truth, capital T truth, rather than your own, personal gnosis. That's a challenge sometimes. And it's not really a challenge in that I try to set them, I go, no, I'm the one who knows it all, because that's not what I want from the 47s. Everyone should have a subjective experience with it or whatever. The reason it kind of annoys me is because then you see it in forums where people are telling other people this is how it is, rather than, suggestion. Even in the book, I say, go play with these servants for a while before you read what they're about, to see what you kind of, what you come up with, what your kind of outlook is with them and all that, and work with them that way. Because I'm hesitant to give strict rules in an awful lot of things, because it kind of limits the whole idea then in the end. Which is my problem then when other people try to do that, more than me trying to have a control thing over it, because I do think that it should be as open and people should have it as subjective as possible view, because that's what Chaos Magic is to me. It's a subjective experience. It's finding what works for you. And then when people say things about the 47s as if it's a new revelation and this is how you do it, and it doesn't happen often. It has happened enough times for me to mention it as part of the challenges, but not like, it's not an everyday thing, it's not an every week thing, and it's with a certain type of personality that it only happens with, and I assume it happens a lot of time with them. It's not just with the 47s that they would have very firm ideas on a lot of things. So yeah, that's kind of overall not really many challenges, in other than it took a long time to do. It's a lot of work. It's like there's a lot of communication with people. And again, as Robbie has said to me numerous times, this is what you wanted. This is what you do. When you set out in this is what is the end result of that. So And I go, so I'm not complaining about it. It's just I'm mentioning that it's a challenge in the sense of the thing that has to be done, that now follows on from what I have done, and I'm okay with it. I hope that answers your question. Probably not though. Ing Winters says, you may have addressed it in the thread. What's your favorite occult book, or who inspired your magic work? The thread that he's referring to is a thread I put up in the 40 Servants Facebook group, which was what is your favorite New Age spiritual magic or occult book, which is basically me going, give me recommendations for books that I may not have read, and there's a load I had read, of course. What is my favorite? My favorite. I have a number of favorites, I suppose, but if I had to, if I had to give one book to someone and that was it, what would it be? Depending on who they are and what their approach is, I would probably go with Infinite Self by Stuart Wilde. Because Stuart Wilde is the biggest influence on me of all of my influences on how I think and whatever. And again, because every time I mention Stuart Wilde, I have said this, is I don't go the whole journey with him. Like his last decade or so is weird, very dark, and I'd be more, and even because I'm more towards his early stuff, but even his early stuff, some of his things I don't agree with, or not that I don't agree with, I don't believe it to be the truth. I think it's a very grand working hippopotamus, hippopotamus. But it's not like, I don't like, he goes on about mirror worlds and the morph and these kind of things, and that's fine. That kind of works, it works as an idea, but I'm not convinced that that's how the universe is actually constructed or anything like that. But his approach, his lightheartedness, his humor, his pragmatism, his being okay with making money, like that it's not, you're not spiritually bankrupt if you actually make money, all those kind of things, particularly his humor and his I don't know, I met him and he definitely is the most impressive spiritual energy you want, but like he was quite drunk. He was definitely human, and all those kinds of things, and I wouldn't say he was like in any sort of way an ascended master or enlightened or anything, just a guy who knew stuff. So yeah, Infinite Self, Stuart Wilde would be biggest inspiration. He's not, like, he wouldn't consider himself magic, so that's definitely more a new agey thing. Magic wise, you have the obvious ones. You have Alan Chapman, Duncan Barford, Gordon White, Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison more him than what his actual, what he's written, although The Invisibles is great. Well, it's Ramsey Jukes, of course. Just looking at my bookshelf. But yeah, like that kind of stuff. Just obvious stuff. But Peter Carroll, yeah, kind of. Like, I have all his books and read all his books, and you don't get to have any of the other books that I've mentioned without him. But I'm not sure I would ever give anyone Liber Null as a book to introduce them to magic. If someone wanted to get into magic, I'd give them Advanced Magic for Beginners by Alan Chapman. So yeah. Then we have Jason Ponser. I think, again, apologies if that's not how you pronounce it. I wanted to ask your opinion on magical names and titles. Personally, I've never chosen or used a specific name or title, but I'm more researcher than an active participant. Additionally, people using titles such as witch, mage, magician, etc. have always come off as self-aggrandizing to me. Reading Chapman's chapter on names has me reevaluate my feelings on it. I used a magical name once called Frater Blue, but that was because I was trying to be anonymous rather than trying to be, self-aggrandizing. I wanted to have a separation between my real life and being able to talk online about, magic and all that kind of thing. And that lasted like 7 or 8 days before Facebook went, no, what's your real name? And then so that went out the window. But adventuresinwooWoo.com did start originally as fraterblue.com when it was on Tumblr. That's the only time I've used a magical name. I'm not into them, but I'm not opposed to them or whatever. I totally understand why someone would do it. The titles and the grades and all that kind of thing, fine if you're in in that kind of Golden Dawn system and all that sort of way, but only if you actually can do all the things that each of those grades you're meant to be able to do, and the knowledge you have and all that, not just because you're cool or whatever. Then you have like the calling yourself a magician or calling yourself or whatever. Sometimes these things are just handy shorthands. Like people, what are you? Well, I'm into chaos magic, which is how I'd answer rather than I'm a chaos magician. Although I do say I'm a chaos magician an awful lot on the podcast, as a good chaos magician. But that's kind of saying, how would I describe myself? I don't know. I've come less and less to enjoy the word magician and magic and occultist and all that because of all of the things, the surrounding, asteroid field that goes with all of those type of labels and all that. And equally, I'm not just New Age. I'm not just spiritual. I'm not, I'm not religious. Though, like, where is the boundary on spiritual? Where is the boundary on religious and magic and all of these things? So yeah, if you want to use a name, go for it. I think give yourself a title. I think if you're going to have a title, someone else should probably give it to you rather than giving it to yourself. And it'd be more than just, be it a reward for work or knowledge or something you've done. But again, do as thou wilt. I don't really, literally that. Do whatever you want. Do whatever feels good. Do what gives you more of what you want and gives you less of what you don't want. And that's it. So that's all the questions that we had for this month. I hope I in some way answered them to your satisfaction. And if not, just send me a message and I will try to elaborate on them or try to be more succinct on them or try to, actually answer them correctly for you. So, yeah. So that was the Tommy Kelly podcast, and that was the monthly Q&A. If you want to get into next month's Q&A, which will probably mostly likely be for Patreons only, then you can check out the Patreon page at tommykelly.com. If you have no interest in giving me money or supporting me, which, fine, absolutely fine. Why would you support some random dude off the internet? Then you can just go to adventuresinwoohoo.com and you can check out all the stuff I do, from the podcast to the YouTube channel to the 47's video course, to all the information you could possibly want about the 47s is there as well, including how to completely use the 47s without spending any money whatsoever. And what else is on there? I have a 500px account, which is Tommy Kelly. I'm a Flickr as well. I have an Adventure in Woo Woo page on Facebook, which is coming up to 15,000 likes, which is pretty awesome. Thank you all. And just search Adventures in Woo Woo and you will find it. There's a 47's Facebook page. There's a number of foreign language ones. There's a Brazilian one, so that's Portuguese, Brazilian. There's a Spanish one. And then there's an actual group that is just about me in Portuguese, which is quite weird and somewhat unsettling. But as Robbie told me, this is what you wanted. Not sure I want this group in Portuguese talking about me, really, to be honest. But, it's part of the package deal. And yeah, so that's it. That's just another episode of this podcast. And I hope to see you all next week or two. Well, I won't see any of yous and you won't see me. I hope to talk at you next week once again. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, whatever you get up to. And I hope life treats you extra special this week. So talk to you next week. People of the internet, be well.